welcome to today's webinar, the 5-Star Emergency Department. Our speaker today is Kevin Robbins, Corporate Implementation Specialist with Custom Learning Systems. At this time, all lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. We will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. Type your question using the question prompt. They'll be answered in the order they were received. Please identify the name of your organization at the beginning of your entry. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available in the CIHQ YouTube library within a few days. It's now my pleasure to turn the conference over to our presenter. Kevin, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Michelle, thank you so much for allowing us to have this opportunity to not only meet together like this, but also, of course, learn together. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be here, especially with all of you. We're so grateful for CIHQ and their willingness to provide this resource for everyone here. We desire to give you value in this time that we're together here. Appreciate all of you listening in, and we'll see as we go through if indeed we're going to give you a value add. I know absolutely we are. My name is Kevin Robbins. Has already been said, Corporate Implementation Specialist for Custom Learning Systems, and I'm thankful to have a chance just to talk to you. So let's go ahead and get started here with this idea, with the idea especially of learning. At CLS, we've got to help with value, we've got this one enduring idea. And this has been brought to us by our CEO and founder, Brian Lee. And he says this over and over again, so much so that we've all adopted it as well, to learn one idea, one new idea every single day, and to do it in a better way. As we begin, I just want to tell you and acknowledge an interesting story. And this is the story of Bill Bryant. Bill Bryant shares a story. Bill was taking care of a rental home that his parents actually owned and had rented out to a young couple. Bill stopped by to help them out from time to time, and he discovered excitedly that this young couple was pregnant. And in fact, the good news was that they were pregnant with twins. And so Bill left them and came back very soon after, a month or two after. And when he showed up, he was surprised when he walked through the door to see that there was only one baby born. And he inquired as to the twin, what did happen. And it's very interesting. In broken English, this couple said, "We have very little money, so the hospital kept the other baby because we couldn't pay enough." Now, when Bill heard this, he was gobsmacked. He was, as you are even right now, and I am when I heard this story, just dismayed and alarmed. And so he began to make some calls. And when he called, he discovered that, in fact, there was two babies born. One baby had serious health issues and was transferred to a tertiary hospital. The couple, as they left, didn't really understand what was happening. You know, in the next slide, it says this: it's the little things that are the big things. And actually, what's interesting about this story is that Bill flew into action, and he gathered up this couple once he found out where this other baby was, and he drove them to the hospital, and he got them in through the doors to see their second-born child, and the mom and the dad were able to, in fact, hold that baby for about 45 minutes before it passed. It's the little things that are the big things. Now, what we discovered, or what Bill discovered from this story, you talk about little things becoming big things. The translator had never verified that the couple had really understood, and registration had not ever really verified the correct contact information. Now, we share this story. We know this isn't a usual story, not by a long shot, but again, these little things in life, these little things at our jobs turn into big things, don't they? So as Ruth Feidler says from Fitzgibbon Hospital, there's no such thing as a small act. We appreciate this statement from Jan Carlson, who wrote Moments of Truth. Excellence is not doing one thing 1,000% better, but you'd agree with this, folks. It's doing 1,000 things just 1% better. That's really what excellence is. So our big challenge over the next few minutes together, as I really try to give some value to all of you in this 5-star ED, is to create a timely 5-star culture of healing that compassionate and dedicated caregivers will never want to leave. And the reality is this, folks, that your ER is, amongst other things, it's your front door. It's the patient's first and lasting impression. It's the DNA of your community brand. And you know this to be true. It's your primary marketing department. And for many, your ER defines your hospital. It's your doors that so many in the community that end up coming through at moments of great crisis and sometimes trauma and intense emotion. And for many, it defines your hospital and it predicts ultimately the patient experience. I was walking into doing some work at a hospital in Minnesota just recently, and I saw an older gentleman. He was just walking through the parking lot with me, and he asked me what I was doing. I asked him what he was doing. He said he actually just dropped off his wife. And I said, how are you feeling? And he said, this group in this ER, they're the best group in the world. And I said, listen, can I quote you on that? And he said, absolutely. You tell them for me. And it was such a great example. And I know you experience this from time to time. With the good work that you do, it impacts not just people who are coming through the doors to be served, but those who are connected to them, right? So let's do the math here a little bit. When it comes to, you don't become a 5-star hospital without having a 5-star ER. And there's 2 ways to do it. The vision here, of course, is through CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. You can be 5-star that way, and really beginning to understand, and we'll talk about this in a minute, really understanding and digging down deep on surveys for patient satisfaction and knowing them and applying them. So CMS, you can become 5-star that way, but also for critical access hospitals, the NRRS allows the opportunity for hospitals that aren't able to have enough surveys due to their population. The NRRS really has come forward to be an excellent resource where these excellent hospitals can have that 5-star accommodation. And at Custom Learning Systems, we work with so many different healthcare organizations, hospitals, but I'd like to show you on screen right here. This is the latest 17 5-star successes that we've had through CMS and through NRRS. So proud of all of them and the work they do and how they, just like you right now, have just leaned in to learn a little bit more about what's going to make us a 5-star hospital and a 5-star ED. Now, the challenge, of course, is this: to provide healing clinical care that saves patients' lives and delivers a kind, compassionate, and timely experience. Now, you'll notice that, I don't know if you're looking closely, but I know you'll notice that the upper text there is in black. This is the traditional text. The challenge for us is to provide healing clinical care that saves patients' lives. Full stop. Of course, that's what you do, and you're excellent at it. You've been trained at it, and this is what you focus on. But the challenge is, and you, of course, know this to be true, is to figure out a way to deliver that with that extra something, that kindness, that compassion, and that timely experience. And today, we want to talk about that, tease that apart a little bit as we talk about 7 5-star habits. Now, if you don't already have a learning guide, I want to encourage you to go ahead and scan this right here, or you've been provided with the learning guide and you can get that as well. And there's a way to get the learning guide. Also, as you can see on the screen, as you look at your screen, you can download the learning guide that way as well. And this is just a reminder, you're going to see another QR code here. This is for an evaluation and for some of the tools that I'll be offering to you over the next few minutes. So if you can right now, scan this and and sort of hold it for the end. You'll be rewarded for that in that way, and it'll be good. So we'll come back to this QR code at another time. Let's talk a little bit about our agenda over the next few minutes. Again, focusing on giving you some value in being the 5-star ER. The first is this. We're going to talk about mastering the skills of patient survey literacy. Next, we're going to make a commitment. And this is particularly in the area of care promises. 3, we're going to talk about what gets measured, gets treasured. 4, we're going to empower and talk about how we can empower with this idea of license to please. 5, to unleash the magic of frontline ownership. Yep, I said magic because we really believe it is magical when the frontline takes that ownership. 6, changing your culture. And 7, 5, staffing paradigm shifts. Let's talk about adult learning for just a second as we get started. There's 3 insights that we should just talk about right away in adult learning, because you might hear some of the things that I'm going to say today and say, well, I already know that. This is pretty easy stuff. I've already figured this out. And if that's true about you, well, congratulations. But here's the thing about adult learning. If you confirm the value of things you already know and the things you already do, at least it's affirming to you. You feel good about that. But the next is this. If you're being reminded about what you used to practice, but you forgot to practice this, well, that's enlightening. In other words, there might be some things that I'll hit on today where you'll be like, okay, that's not rocket science. I do know that, but boy, we haven't been doing that for a while in our ER or in our ED, and we need to. And then the third, of course, is this. If you end up discovering something that's brand new or a new idea that you haven't thought about, if you discover it's a valuable new idea, and that, of course, is engaging. So either way through this, I want you to feel affirmed and enlightened or engaged either way. And just for your awareness, with CIHQ's blessing, I want to offer today 3 different complementary educational tools for you as we go forward. So as we move forward here, just think about this, friends. If you could wave a magic wand and improve one thing about how your ER is perceived, what would that be? This is a rhetorical question, but think forward and say, what would you like to improve if you had the chance? What would it be? Well, let's go into some habits here then. Habit number 1. I talked about this already in the agenda. Habit number 1, mastering the skills of patient experience and survey literacy. We're going to do 7 5-star habits right here. Now, I don't think this is like Zoom where everybody can raise their hands. So I'm just going to explain what oftentimes I do when I'm in person with folks or when I'm on a Zoom call and people can raise their hands. I have everybody generally raise their hands and leave their hands up. And as they ask questions, or as I ask these questions, lower your hand when you don't know the answer. Now, I'm not going to have you do that, everyone, but here's what generally happens. By the end of these 5 patient literacy questions, usually there's only 1 or 2 hands left up, and oftentimes none at all. Some of the questions are these. We'll just go through them really quick. So imagine if you did have your hand up right now. Would you be able to answer this? Do you know your latest patient experience scores that you influence? And what are they? So imagine if you still had your hand up. Yep, I know that. What about the next one? Do you know the scores that have changed since the previous report, whether that's a month ago or in the last quarter? And how has it changed? So friends, would your hands still be up at this point? Would you know this as far as scores? How about the next? What are the top 2 things your patients say that you do best? Do you know this for sure? A lot of times, if there's still some hands up, generally they drop at this next question here. What are your top 2 patient dissatisfiers? Usually the hands come down here where people are like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I really know that, but there's one more. And when this is a kind of the final question, which dissatisfiers are all your people working on to eliminate? So imagine if we just did that together, and most of our hands would more than likely be down at this point, meaning we couldn't answer specifically to all of those questions. So the next slide, we just ask this: how many of us would still have our hands up? And let's go to that next slide. What's the whole point of what I did right here? As you're trying to listen and pay attention to what this guy is saying from afar, the point is just simply this: you can't fix what you don't know, right? No offense to me and to you, duh. We can't fix what we don't know. So if we're not aware of our scores, if we're not patient score literate, how in the world are we going to fix them? And I do this all the time, talking to organizations, talking to specific healthcare organizations, specific hospitals, where I'll say, listen, do you know, are you patient literate? And everyone will says, I know it, until we get right down to it and we realize we don't really know what the scores are. So it's not that hard to be aware. And look at the other side of the screen as we talk about, you can't fix what you don't know. And then as a leader, as a person who joins your team huddles, your people don't care about what they don't know about. So if you yourself aren't even aware as a leader, how is your team going to turn this corner? Well, it's a really good question next. The question next is simply this: what's more important than what your patients and your families and the community are saying about you? Rhetorical question there. There's really nothing more important when it comes to the ER, the ED. This is an interesting question. Why won't patients tell you how they honestly feel about you while they're under your care and your control? I hear this all of the time. Listen, if they gave us low scores, why didn't they just say something? You know, when I was with them, why didn't they just tell me that they didn't find it very quiet at night? When I was with them, why didn't they tell me, even during my teach back, that they didn't understand the meds? Why didn't they tell me? Well, it's a good question. The reason people won't tell you, more than likely, is the same reason most of us on this call probably won't send back a meal when it's not cooked, or when it comes out in a restaurant not the way we ordered it, because we're afraid. You're in the person who you are serving, the person who's the patient, is not the power broker. You are. They are under your care and control. And a lot of us don't want to send our food back because we're not eager to get back a new moist crust that someone put on it out of resentment for you. So, hey, I don't want to be in any trouble. These people have my life in their hands. I know that's not such a deep point, but as is on the screen in front of you, a lot of times our perception can be deception. We can be deceived, and our teams can be deceived at the care we're providing and the patient experience that people have. That's really what this is all about. So our recommendation is this, of course, simply to become a patient experience survey literate. If you and your team, you and your organization become that is a good thing to do. And that point again, simply put, is you can't hold people accountable for what they don't know. So if you look on page 3, this is where we should be on the slides. If you are on the learning guide, rather, if you look on page 3, you can follow along there. This has already been said. You can't hold people accountable for what they don't know. So point number 1, become patient literate. Habit number 2, make a commitment. Make a commitment. You know, there is a 5-star caregiver in every single caregiver. You know, at CLS, we believe that to be true. Not only, we don't just believe it optimistically, we believe it because we've seen it happen over and over and over again. Without a doubt, people, of course, are working because they've got a mortgage. People are working for pay. But there is something special about you and your decision to be in this world, in this industry, in this company, in your hospital, in your ER. because you and those around you are just determined. There's something caregiver inside of us all. So our challenge as leaders is to create a 5-star ER culture where kindness and compassion thrive. And it says on the screen, of course, the patients ultimately, they remember how you made them feel more than you helped them heal. And that is not at all to disrespect the fact that you do amazing work healing people. But here's the reality of human beings. And I am a human being myself. And I was recently in the hospital myself under the care of someone like you. Listen, I wanted to be healed physically. But what was really important to me too, I couldn't even control myself, was how you made me feel. We can't stop ourselves with this. And so when it comes to patient experience, we're going to equate things about how we feel. And that leads us to this next idea as well. And that is the idea of promises. Now, on the next slide, it's really interesting. If you happen to send your kid, or you know somebody who would ever send their kid to a Waldorf school, they all have these codes of compassions on the wall. And they're kind of cute. All the kids who come through the door of that school see this, and that's who they are when they're through the doors. I help each other, I help others, I respect myself, I respect others, etc. Well, what if you committed your emergency department to care promises? Like on this next slide here, what if you came up with not the Waldorf school care promises, but this is promises from your emergency department, from all of you to those who come through your doors. And it may start like on this next slide here with a phrase that just says, the experience you deserve and can trust. So welcome to our emergency department. And you may remember on the image that I just showed you 2 slides ago, this idea of trust. We take this acronym, we take trust and make it an acronym. What if you made your care promises out of the word trust? So the first would be this, T, timely care. What if your care promises in your ER was this, to receive a friendly and empathetic acknowledgement within 2 to 5 minutes when someone comes through the door? Second, patients with serious or life-threatening conditions will be seen immediately. Are we confident enough to put this up as our care promises for everyone to see? 3, to receive updates on wait times every 15 to 20 minutes if delay occur, and to be in the arrival room no longer than 30 minutes. May I just say before we switch slides here, arrival room, not an accident. Perhaps the best thing we can do is, and many of you know this, is to remove the idea of a waiting room. Call it whatever you want, an arrival room, a family room, something, but anything but you're here to wait. Let's keep going with potential care promises that we could come up with. TR in trust. R, relationships matter. What if our care promises said this, number 4, to be treated with kindness and respect and empathy always, to introduce ourselves, number 5, and provide clear explanations so you can understand your care. And you and the trust acronym, understand you. 6, care that listens first to the person and uses our best judgment to understand and answer your questions and concerns. Well, we're not done yet, are we? S comes next in that trust acronym. What if your care promises were spotlight on you? Oh, we may have lost our screen. Is that true?
Yes, sir. I'll check in with Kate and get it back up.
Apologies, friends. I'll tell you what, I know you can listen along and you don't need necessarily to see all this. So we're going through this idea of what if your ED had care promises? And we're using that trust acronym. If we were on S from the trust acronym, put the spotlight on the person, spotlight on you. So number 7 would be that we're promising that our arrival room will be a clean, safe, and welcoming environment for you and your loved ones. Number 8 would be, no matter what your condition, we care about you. Remember, the spotlight is on you. And we'll use our best judgment to focus on comfort and safety to minimize your pain. And the final care promise that we could come up with, T, that second T there, here we go, we're back again, would be that we promise that we'll transition with kindness, that a team is committed to timely and responsive and compassionate healing care. And what if in all of this, we put not only these trust or these care promises up on somewhere for all to see, but then we even had everyone sign. All our ED caregivers put their signature saying, yep, this is us, this is who we are, and this is what we will deliver to you. We promise. These are our promises to you. You see, in the next slide, you see, you do something like this, these care promises, and I think very quickly you'll soon be known as the friendliest ED in all of your state, and that is 5-star, certainly. So our recommendation in the next slide is that your ED team starts thinking about and gets and even designs their own care promises. Perhaps a little bit later, there's a QR code. You can access the one that I've shown you here, take it, work on it, put it in the context that you live in, that you work in, and make it yours. So get your ED team to weigh in and design their own care promise statement. And just remember this, there's a way to get buy-in from everyone in the ED that is so much more better than just you telling them, look, everybody, here's what we're going to do. So much more than that. There's a process where you appoint a team designer, where you meet with everyone in small groups, etc. So the long and short here, friends, is that life changes not when you begin to act, but when you commit to act. Even all of you who are on this call right now, you committed at some point, probably a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where you signed up for this. And more than likely, you wouldn't be on this call today if you hadn't committed earlier on, because you got the reminder, I need to be on the call, etc. That's the way it goes. So when and how will you phase in your own care promises for your ED? Our encouragement for you is to do that. And on the next slide, as Zarbin said, one of the tools that we're willing to offer you is this template. So we go to the next slide there. Again, there's that QR code. When you do the evaluation at the end, just request this. If you'd like a copy of that, we'll get that to you and you can work on that as well. Let's go to habit number 3, which was what gets measured gets treasured. So when it comes to your ER, some rhetorical questions here, but how important is the initial wait time to a mother with a child? Don't even need to answer that, right? Number 2, does the length of time to get admitted really matter? Yeah, it's a huge evaluation, isn't it? And what does your left without being seen metric say ultimately about you? So which metric goals resonate the most with you and why? Which metrics or which goals? You can see a list here of 10 that are on the screen that we find are the most impacting, for lack of a better word, whether it's average visit time, time for discharge. You can see all of them here. I won't do a deep dive into these, but which ones are the most important? In the next slide, we just say simply this, and you know this to be true: what gets measured is what gets treasured. So back to our slide again here, what we recommend is, back to the next slide. Yeah, what we recommend is that everyone in the ER, in your ED, set an annual improvement goal for these 10 priority metrics that you meet and think through. Do it at least annually. And how can we increase? How can we do better? This is a way to become 5-star. The next is to empower your caregivers with a license to please. Now, this is an interesting one, but before we talk about this extensively, I wanted you to meet Tiffany. Tiffany is a little girl. She's about 4 years old, and she was in Illinois, and she was having severe health challenges. Well, they discovered that they were going to have to fly Tiffany actually in a helicopter to St. Louis for further treatment. And Tiffany really got upset. She started to really kind of pitch a little bit of a fit. She was not happy at all. And when they asked Tiffany, what's wrong? We need to do this. We need to move you. She said, I'm not going to be able to be here for my mom's birthday. I have to be here for my mom's birthday. Now, this is a 4-year-old, friends, who's saying this. And as soon as the staff heard this, one of them actually rushed out, went to the dollar store, bought some balloons and streamers, bought a cupcake and some candles. And you can see the cupcake there on the bottom of that second picture. And then they got Tiffany's mom to come in before they moved her. And Tiffany's mom played along with it, said, look, here's what we're doing. She's really upset. And Tiffany's mom acted surprised, so blown away that they were doing this. And Tiffany was so thoughtful. And it just made this little girl's day, this little girl's moment. And her mom and Tiffany were able to have a special moment together. And I tell you that story to tell you this, that this picture, if we can go back, this final picture is probably the last time that they were together. They did take Tiffany to St. Louis, and unfortunately she did not live. But the interesting part of this story is this mom and this dad, this family, come back to this group of nurses, this group of providers every single year on the date that this happened, to express their thanks for their empathy, for their kindness, and for their care. So you can see underlaid, friends, behind this story is a lot of things. One, empathy, compassion. Even when the story doesn't turn out well, we remember that we were cared for and that we were loved. But also under this story, undergirding all of this story, is the power of the front line, those who are there doing the things that make the difference. So our next slide just says this as we begin. Our fourth habit, which is empowering your caregivers with license to please. Until your front line owns the patient experience, you're never going to improve patient experience score. So we know this. Archimedes once said, give me a lever long enough and I'll single-handedly move the world. And in 2026, the lever that moves the world, or the lever that moves the world, is education. And here is what we offer you, the License to Please Empowerment Bundle. This is some pretty cool stuff. Remember I said at the start, there's some things that you're going to know. Well, it's good to know them again, good to be reminded of them again. There's 7 empowering skill sets that we offer in the License to Please. And there they are in front of you. Service recovery, 6-foot rule, etc. Let's go ahead and get started and run through these as fast as I can. The first is service recovery by patient advocates, by those on the front line. Brian Lee, our CEO and founder, came up with this very clever, memorable hook for service recovery. Hey, listen, when we mess up, we fess up, and then we dress up. Guys, you know this. It's not that you actually need to get changed and get dressed up, but we dress up the problem. We fix the problem with service recovery. And it's the frontline workers that experience all this. It's the front line that should be highly involved in our service recovery, empowering everyone to know that when someone comes in and a machine is broken down, so they made their appointment, you know the story here, right? And they can't, someone comes out and says, listen, we're sorry for this mistake. Your time is important to us. We want to take ownership of that. Although there was nothing we could do, we still apologize. And look, here's a gas card for your trouble. Let's make sure you're booked in for the next time that when the machine is fixed, we'll get you in right away, etc. Whatever it might be there, we mess up, we fess up, we dress up. And we have the front line take that responsibility, because if we have to wait to contact a manager, we have to wait to contact a leader, well, where are the leaders? A lot of times they're in conferences like this and we can't get a hold of them. So we empower that front line, a very intuitive idea, but a very important one. The next was the 6-foot rule. Do you remember that? So the first is mess up, fess up, dress up. The next one is that 6-foot rule. And this is dignity. This is kindness. Everyone who walks through your halls, walks through rooms, we decide, as far as it depends on us, all employees here make eye contact with each other and with those who we are serving. And we smile and we greet them and we speak to them with dignity and respect. It's also called the 10-5 rule, whatever it is. You know how powerful that is. And you also know how a lot of times we can just be thoughtless and forget. And for someone who is insecure, who is under your care, for you not to make eye contact, not to smile, not to greet them, not to give them even that dignity, it can throw them into a negative spiral, a concern. They might start thinking, what do they know that I don't know? Why weren't they? Is there something wrong with me? And that is not a message we want to send to our patients who come through the door or those that we work with. The next one is number 3, the no pass zone. Pretty simple stuff here, but anyone can answer a call light. Anyone can answer and meet a need, whatever that might be. So anyone, if someone's glasses fell on the floor, doesn't have to be a nurse, a provider who answers that, but anyone can go in if they're just passing by. So we have a no pass zone there. Of course, there's probably important issues that we have to go over with everybody to make sure we don't want anyone who's an EV tech trying to change a vent or anything like that. Yes, we know that to be true. That's not what's being said here, but we teach amongst our front line to become more 5-star. Hey, everyone's aware. No one walks by someone else. How about managing up? Number 4. This idea of managing up is an interesting one. You know what managing up is? That's talking up the person that you're transitioning the patient to. This person is about to come in the room. Susie is about to come in. She's going to be taking you from me. She is amazing. She's been with us 15 years. She's got 4 kids. 2 of them are twins. They've got about 6 dogs. They're an amazing family. But more importantly, Susie is our best of the best, and she is going to help you in every way. It's said that in every hospital visit, the average person, a patient like me, has 60 different contacts, 60 different touches, 60 different, isn't that an amazing number, friends? Unbelievable. And can you imagine how your ER, can you imagine how your hospital will increase its value in the community if for every single one of those, everyone in the hospital knows, everyone in your ER knows, we always manage up. I'm never too busy not to take a second and manage up and listen, that question is even embedded in the HCAHPS questions. That question, the CMS wants to know, did the patient notice if you all get along together? Super important on your way to 5-star. How about the next one? The Live It Platinum rule. Whoever hears the complaint becomes that patient's saint. The Live It Platinum rule. This often happens. I know I've got an iPhone. I had a problem with my iPhone, so I did call in and I said, I need some help. And the first person I got, I think his name was Jim. He said, boy, you've definitely called the right person. I'm going to help you, but I can't figure it out. So I'm going to put you on the line with, I think it was Doris. At any rate, Doris got on the line with me and she talked to me, said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to own your problem until it's solved. So if you look at the next slide, imagine in our organization, imagine if your teams said that. If you can go back one, Kat. If your team said, you're definitely talking to the right person, and I'm going to own your situation until it's solved. I'm going to help you as much as I can. We're going to get you helped. That helps, screams benefit to the patient. The last one, license to silence. License to silence. Everyone is empowered to speak in a kinder and gentler way. Everyone is empowered to report or fix anything that is noisy. We know this is one of the biggest areas, and we recommend, of course, when we're talking, we recommend to all of our clients, when you're talking to people who've come in to the ER or in to the hospital staying, say, listen, it's not going to be the same as your home, and you might hear some things while you're resting. I want you to know that these are sounds of care. Isn't that a great phrase? What you're hearing is sounds of care, not just noisy, squeaky wheels. We're helping other people while we help you. Putting up tasteful reminders, visual reminders is important as well. And number 7, freedom to clean. EV techs, friends, they're not invisible. EV techs, in fact, are lifesavers. But the point here is that everyone needs to be to that kind of tech. Nobody is above that. Don't pass it up, but indeed pick it up. When it comes to garbage or trash or helping clean, this is a job for everyone in the organization. I know I can get an amen from all of you, but here's what we recommend, even for all CEOs. Maybe you should do this. Go out and buy a gag gift. I think you can get it off Amazon. Go out and buy them a golden plunger and present it to them with, not just to humiliate them, but say, you know what? We are all about the freedom to clean. Everyone here does it in every single way. So the next slide, which would you make your number 1 priority? Was it service recovery? Is that 6-foot rule, the no pass zone, managing up? Look, we've even got some memory hooks on the next slide here with all of these 7 things. We kind of repeat these so people don't forget, especially those who are learning them. If you, in the service recovery, you mess up, you fess up, you dress up. You heard that one already. The 6-foot rule, how about look up? The no pass zone, don't pass up. Managing up, manage up. Platinum rule, follow up. License to silence, zip up. Freedom to clean, clean up. And once everybody kind of gets those, now everybody can train up. So our recommendation is that you master the License to Please Empowerment Bundle. There's a great quote here from Kate Hill from the compliance team. I just want to pause here because it's so, I know I've got to hurry, but this is so valuable. Some people have never been number 1 at anything. So when they come through our doors, we're going to make them feel number 1. Make them feel number 1 when they are with you. So friends, our recommendation is this. We can do this License to Please stuff. It's so easy. And in some ways, it's just a reminder. But look at this quote. These are all simple things you can do while you're doing what you do, and they don't cost a cent. So the other free thing that we want to offer you, our tool number 2 with our compliments, with the blessings of CIHQ, is that we want to invite you to really one of the number 1 healthcare conferences in America. This year it's called Thrive, put on by Custom Learning Systems. And we want to offer any of you, when you fill out the form, there's a QR code there again. When you fill out the evaluation form, just check that you're interested in 2 scholarships to attend the annual Healthcare Service Excellence Conference. And that is in Reno, Nevada this year, November 9th to 2026. So if that interests you, and I'm sure, let me tell you, it's awesome. With everything that we're talking about, it's really highlighted and hit there. You'd love it. So please make that a priority there. Habit number 5, unleash the magic of frontline ownership. We want to recommend that you engage in your brightest and your best to teach patient experience workshops to everyone, and then teach the new hires. For example, getting this the brightest and the best to teach something like the License to Please. Pretty easy stuff to teach, but you take the time. And we like to call these people service excellence advisors, where we get the brightest and the best together. Here's a picture of some as well. And we know that this is a frontline game changer. So our encouragement is that you train your frontline. For them to do 2 hours a year and teach peer to peer. In teams of 4, it can be amazing. And what influence do you think they have when they teach this? In the next slide, the influence is so very powerful. So you get frontline workers teaching in this way, and they'll all say, oh, I can't do it. But you'd be amazed how it impacts the culture for the positive when they do. So if all your caregivers owned and felt accountable for your patient experience scores, what would happen? Well, it's a superpower, friends. And what's the point here? Zig Ziglar says the only thing worse than training your employees and losing them is this: not training them or keeping them. So all the excuses that might be coming to your mind right now, boy, I don't know if we could get frontline folks to do this. Throw that away. They do. They love it. They're excellent at us. So what would be the impact of engaging your brightest and your best to educate and empower their peers? We think it's a superpower. So our recommendation is that you appoint your own. Habit number 6. I know I'm hurrying, friends. Thank you for your patience. Want to give you this value, though. Habit number 6 is change your culture or be doomed to repeat it. This is a Press Ganey review on the screen right here. A 1% change in employee morale equals a 2% change in patient experience. A 1% change in employee morale equals a 2% change in patient experience. Isn't that amazing? So you don't have to just radically change your teams or your world. Just improve a little bit, and it improves that patient experience amazingly. So the next slide just says there's an unswerving belief in the likelihood of a positive outcome. We just got to have hope. Can I tell you the story of Sylvia, Director of Operations at Camarena Health? She tells a story of a young boy and his uncle that would often come in to the ER. And they would come and the uncle would bring his nephew. And then one day the little boy ran in tears and really concerned. And they said, my uncle's in the car, he won't get out. They rushed out only to find that the uncle actually had passed away. They didn't know what to do. They wanted to have kindness and empathy. And so what they decided in that moment, knowing that these little eyes were on them, is they brought the uncle in and they proceeded to kind of pretend to work on him until the ambulance arrived and then took the body away. And then they sat with him and explained the news, the difficult news. Really, friends, it was an extraordinary act of kindness in a moment of decision that had to be made that impact, of course, the culture. There's no such thing as a small act, right? You know, we get evaluations from time to time as we do presentations like this, and Colleen Smith wrote this. After listening to even something like this, she just said, you know what, from now on, I'm looking forward to my kindness ship in the morning. Isn't that awesome? So when it comes to culture, friends, we just have to be aware of this. Culture eats strategy for lunch. In other words, we can strategize, and you need to. You need to be systematically organized in your ER, in your ED, of course. But culture is really everything. And we don't want just for you to bring up flavors of the month, because as it says here, flavors of the month campaigns leave a bad taste, and they're really such a waste, no matter what they are. It's the fish or the pickle pledge or who moved my cheese or the cupcake principle. I hope you don't even know what I'm talking about here, but these things don't really change anything. You know what changes things? Everyone being sincere, leaning in and taking ownership. So we know this, it takes 3 years to change a culture. This is what we've discovered, and we know it to be true. I want to say it again. In fact, I should say it 3 times. It takes 3 years to change a culture. And finally, friends, don't forget, it takes 3 years to change a culture. So my goal in all of this is not just to quench your thirst, but it's just to whet your appetite, to get some ideas going as you think about your situation. Listen, the final tool I'm excited to offer you as well with the blessing of CIHQ is what we call the Ignite the Patient Experience. And Ignite the Patient Experience is you can, at the end in the evaluation, enter your group into a draw for a 2-day on-site leadership program called Ignite the Patient Experience. That includes travel and per diem costs. And we're really excited about this because it's so incredibly successful with organizations. We come in at CLS, a former CEO and a world-class presenter and speaker come in, and we spend really some time together where we listen and we want to help. We give educational tools that are based from what we've heard and what would help you the best. Then we encourage everyone to get together, even if they have to come in virtually and hear a very inspirational teaching of how we can be 5-star. And then at the end of all this, 10 days later, you're going to get a blueprint how to become 5-star based on what we've learned. And you can take that and become 5-star yourself. Or if you need CLS's help, we'd absolutely love to join you there. The average rating of this presentation is 4.8. I'm going to hurry to habit number 7. Staffing paradigm shift you need to know. Clint Moss says this: there's plenty of help, they just don't work for you. Well, that's discouraging, Clint. And you know, we try to get people who work for us, we send messages, and sometimes it sounds like we're begging. And what message does what does begging do? We're now hiring in all positions. What about the next slide here? No forced vaccines, now hiring and must have a clue. What's the not so subtle message here? Come on in, but come in through the loading dock. That's not the best message at all. You know, we know that Marriott's one of the best culture organizations in the world. Look at theirs. Brilliance starts here. So as we talk about as we talk about staffing paradigms that need to change, we certainly go from Stephen Covey here. Don't let the things you can't control interfere with the things you can. Here's some things that you can control. There's a need for 5 paradigm shifts. First is this: stop acting like a victim. Simply this: we're not a victim to what the government does, we're a victim to people in our community do. Whenever we act like a victim, we victimize ourselves and our organization. So just simply put, stop that. Number 2, hug those new hires. Hug them for a year. Bubble wrap them, keep them safe, make sure they're communicating and interacting with that right 20% of people who are very fired up to work where you are fired up to work, and they believe in the work that we're doing. You keep your new hires around those people, take care of them. That's a paradigm shift that's so very important. Number 3, recruit your own recruits. That 20% that I already talked about that love your organization, they'll do anything for it, and a lot of them in that front line who could be your brightest and your best. We talked to them about recruiting their own recruits. We're not just waiting for somebody to find us. Look, we know people who could come and really be a great value add to work here. Number 4, it's not an HR issue, it's an operational issue. Yes. Number 5, paradigm shift, frontline engagement. I've talked about that already. It's no longer an option, it's the answer. There's a funny quote next. When it comes to paradigm shifts, this old guy from a Canadian Premier says, look, if you've not suffered enough, it's your God-given right to suffer more. We don't want any more suffering here. Let's learn here. We offer something called the Accelerated Staffing Fix. That's about 23 best practices to help with staffing. So as you look at these, which paradigm shift is needed the most where you work? 1, just stop being a victim. 2, maybe hugging those new hires where you're recruiting your own recruits, realizing it's not an HR issue, but it's an ownership issue, an operational issue, or engagement. No longer, the frontline engagement is no longer an option. We've got to get the frontline more involved. And the next slide is this. Here's our recommendation for everyone we recruit. For every position you recruit like you were recruiting a physician. In other words, we know when we want to recruit physicians or providers, we roll out the red carpet for them. If you're a provider or a physician, you deserve it. Way to go. But everyone deserves that we roll out the red carpet for them as well. So if you have a problem at CLS, this is our mantra. If you've got a problem, make it a procedure and it won't be a problem anymore. So friends, I'm just going to land the plane now. My challenge for you is this. It's time to take control. You can be a 5-star ED. You can be a 5-star ER. You know, there's a quote from Jeremiah Dodrill, CFO at Southern Coast Hospital, who said after this presentation, his response was this: you know, everything that you talked about, Kevin, we're dabbling in these things. We know them. We're dabbling in them, but we have not hardwired them. Now, when our CEO heard this, he came up with this phrase: hope, dabbling, and mentioning. Those are not strategies, friends. We've got to make a decision and get right to it. There's a book called Mind Maps by Tony Bazan. He says 93% of what you learn in a classroom is forgotten within 14 days. I think that's pretty generous. I can forget things a lot faster than that. But our point here is, what we've talked about here, you got to use it or lose it. So the accountability is the first step. WWWH. Who will do what, by when, and how in 14 days. In fact, we could change this even a little bit if you click again. We will do what, when, and how in 14 days. Let's decide that before you get off here. Or even this. You will do what, and when, and how in 14 days. So I just want to summarize. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for letting me just plow through this. Mastering our improvement plan suggestion to you is to master the skills of patient survey literacy. It is to make a commitment. Remember those care promises? Make those kind of promises and post them and train them. What gets measured, friends, gets treasured. Empower with a license to please. That's some pretty cool stuff, isn't it? Unleash the magic of your frontline ownership. Let's get them involved. Change your culture without, and then the next one, the 5-star paradigm shifts. We can't be victims. There is good things ahead for us. provided we lean in. So I want to thank Michelle, the whole CIHQ team. Appreciate that. Now we're going to put up this slide again for the QR code. Do you remember all the things, the tools that we offered? Now's the time to go in here, give us an evaluation, and highlight the tools there, all three of them if you want, that you're interested in, that you know your team would be interested in, or your organization would be interested in them. In the next slide as well, it's you can check off you want the care promises, the scholarship for the Healthcare Service Excellence Conference, or to apply for Ignite the Patient Experience. We'll just leave that up for a second before I go back to Michelle. And Kat, actually, why don't we just leave that up there for everyone to make sure they fill in this evaluation. Friends, I know at this point it's like, really, I don't know if I want to do this. Please give me your evaluation. I would very much appreciate it. And a final thought, friends, would be this: make empathy your default communication style. I just want to recommend a book before I go. I think it's in the next slide there, Kat. This is written by Dr. Groupman, The Anatomy of Hope. But it's very interesting. The next slide just says that Dr. Groupman had a patient named Barb, and he did everything he could do for her, and finally realized he couldn't help her anymore. And he sat with her and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore." And Barb said this: "It's okay. You gave me the medicine of friendship. You gave me the medicine of friendship." So we've got upcoming webinars still with CIHQ. Thank you for their generosity for all of you. There is a few minutes left. If there's questions or comments, love to hear them, but we know you got to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be responsible. Throw it back to Michelle, and Michelle, you can decide to either make a closing comment for everybody or survey anyone as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And Kat, will you put the QR code back up on the slides, please? I highly recommend the conference in November in Reno. It's an outstanding event. Definitely take advantage of this offer from CLS, and I will see you there. There are no questions in the queue, but that's all right because we're right up against the top of the hour. This webinar was recorded and will show up on the CIHQ YouTube page, and I intend to share it out with the organizations that have freestanding emergency departments, as well as all of our hospitals with emergency departments in them, because it's incredible, valuable information. Thank you very much, Kevin, for this event.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.